Hi, Derek Osborn. Thanks for giving up some of your time to have a chat with me today. I really, really appreciate it.
Kevin, pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Cool. So for the people who don't know you, who do you work for and what do you do?
Who do I work for? I work for a company called Ventia. So we're a very large essential services company here in Australia and New Zealand. What do I do? My official title is Group Executive Defence and Social Infrastructure. What does that mean? We look after the assets of large clients across both Australia and New Zealand, large blue and white collar workforce spread across both countries, supporting our clients to keep their assets running 24/7.
We're going to talk about diversity and inclusion today, but before I start asking you questions around that, I did some work for you in the spirit of transparency. I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, Port Hedland, right?
It wasn't Port Hedland, it was Tom Price and Karratha. Yeah.
That's where it was, yeah. It was a wonderful opportunity. And I remember we flew in that really small airplane.
Yep, we did. Yep.
Right? And what I was thinking as I was preparing for this interview, it was like, of course, we haven't changed. We still look young, but our thinking might have changed. And I know mine has. And so we think about diversity and inclusion from 20 years ago, when you were working in Port Hedland and I was doing some work for you, to now. Has there been a big shift personally in your thinking around diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, there has. It's not a big sudden shift, but it's a big shift. And I certainly learned a lot in my time there in the Pilbara, and I've spent a lot of time in the Kimberley and the Pilbara in Western Australia. But one of the key takeaways for me from that experience was around how much time we spent getting Indigenous people ready for work, and we spent no time at all getting work ready for Indigenous people. We were really one-sided in that particular equation, and so to be really culturally aware that Indigenous people, they come to the business, and we try to make them fit into us. And I think the journey for me in that particular area of Indigenous engagement, Indigenous employment, Indigenous success has been around, dang, let's get the balance a bit better. It's not just all one side. It's not all on them.
In terms of diversity and inclusion, what in your business as an executive, is there a business case for it?
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. The science suggests it. Personally, I'm a massive supporter of it. Of course, there's a business case for it. There's so many different ways that you just build out better businesses. Fundamentally, I believe that you grow more quickly with a more diverse organisation, because you appeal to more people, you attract more talent, you just do better and cooler things.
Is there an argument that it makes good business sense, but it also there's a kind of social justice component to it, or is that absolute bullshit and so far away from you that you wouldn't ever say or think that?
I'm not sure they're a different thing. I'm just not sure they're a different thing. I think that increasingly the idea that there would be great businesses out there that don't think about social justice and start to, if not fully incorporate it into their business model, then they're not great businesses. Full stop. So you've got to be thinking about it, and it doesn't matter whether it's environment or the social license or whatever the case may be. If you're not making progress towards it, then you're going backwards. And whilst sure you might be making a short-term gain, and that's possible, and there are plenty of people out there, and good on them, who can sense an opportunity and just go smash and make a lot of money for their stakeholders, and then you walk away, and that's cool. That's not me, just for the record, but I think if you're trying to build a brand that has longevity about it, then they're not separate things. They're the same thing.
Has this change for you been challenging as a white, relatively privileged male? Like, it's a journey for all of us.
Yeah, I would like to say, and I think I can reasonably say, no. I fundamentally get the business case. The business case is really strong around diversity in an organisation. So, the science is there. It's a no-brainer.
Over the years, have the people you worked with had the same mindset as you, or has there been challenges along the way to get people on this journey?
Yeah, no, absolute challenges. You work with some brilliant people who are probably, a decade in front of me and way better than me, and you hopefully learn a little bit from them and you take some cues from them, etc. And equally, there are people in the organisation. It's a natural bell curve. There are people in the organisation and client organisations and supplier, the whole supply chain, where they've got their own distribution across that bell curve as well. So absolutely, there are people that you're hoping to bring on the journey. What is absolutely clear to me, though, is that it's not one size fits all. That one set of messages may not resonate with everyone, and therefore you've got to find ways to connect with people at a lot of different levels, and so you can make the appeal to them, sometimes the direction to them, that this is what we want to achieve and this is the benefit and this is why we're doing it. So but yeah, so absolutely, there's a range of a range of people with different views, of course.
And in your business, as a senior leader, do you have D&I type plans or strategies for moving the business forward? And if so, what might they look like?
Yeah, we've got a range. So some formal, some informal, some leader-led, some business-led. So, fundamentally what I believe in and have come to learn, I guess, over time is that you have to design with the end in mind. That aspirational targets often remain just aspirational, because the here and now gets in the way of the aspiration. So you can set yourself a target of 50% gender diversity, for example, or we've got a target of 6% Indigenous employment, of which we're pretty close to be honest. But you have to take concrete action now rather than just rely upon those aspirational targets, because, as I say, the here and now of the real world can sometimes get in the way, and the expedient decision will often undermine the outcome that you're trying to achieve. So to give an example of what I mean by designing with the end in mind, we're a contractor. We bid for work, and when we bid for work, we bid with an organisation structure, and increasingly we will bid with a 50-50 org structure from day one of the contract. Now, it might have been in the past that we would have said, by month X or year X of the contract, we want to be at this target. And of course, you never quite get there because real world gets in the way. So we say, no, from day one, we're going to be 50-50. Then it's easy. And the reason I think it's easy, because you fill the roles the way that you want to fill them. And then you don't have to somehow exit someone to make the vacancy to then fill it with the candidate or whatever that you're trying to fill it with. So just make it easy, just do it from the start.
So that's a very proactive approach. And is that across your business, or is that just your business?
It's increasingly across the business, and we've got different strategies in different parts of the business. So we're working really hard to identify talent, and we've got very proactive plans around, well, where's our emerging talent, identifying that talent, and again supporting the talent. And whether it's diversity or people with a disability or Indigenous, talent is at every level of the organisation, and emerging talent is at every level of the organisation. So one of the things I find really interesting and a little bit challenging is how do you engage with that talent at all the different levels? It's not just people who might be two down from my part of the structure or aspiring contract managers. Talent is everywhere. And so how do you have this really nice vertical plan to make sure all that talent is identified and has all the potential opportunities.
But is there an opportunity within your business to encourage your contractors to think about diversity and inclusion as part of?
Absolutely. We're often writing it into our engagement plans with those, particularly the larger subcontractors. We expect to see it. Our clients who are often government, they have an expectation that we're not just doing the work that that's set out in the specification, that we're delivering more value. There's real value we can offer on behalf of government, which is deliver the services, but equally make sure the dollars that government spends with us has real impact as well. And so that impact is good quality services, but also making sure the communities in which we work get the opportunities to share in the spend. So, it would be a disaster for me if we were, promoting a really diverse business and then passing through all these dollars to subcontractors that just had none of it. That doesn't make any sense. So yeah, we're really looking for it actively.
Brilliant. There's one thing, creating a framework or a strategy where you include different people, right? But in some organizations, they have that in place, but the culture is at odds with it, and there's massive turnaround and churn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So within your organization, do you think about not only putting those people in those places, but thinking about the type of culture that's required to retain and grow them?
Absolutely. To that point I made, earlier as we're talking, it's not just about getting candidates ready for the role, it's about getting work ready for those candidates too. So, just recently we've been having a conversation around how do we want to identify more female supervisors and technical leaders in the business. And we want to, give them the opportunity to walk the floor, buddy and be mentored, etc. But if you just go and pick any old random, supervisor who say you are now going to be a buddy of this young up and coming candidate, or a person with a disability, and that person's got the wrong attitude and just totally shows them the hand, you'll just destroy that potential. So you got to work really hard. As I say, it's a two-sided arrangement where both parties really have to be engaged and interested. If you're dragging, someone along and they're just doing it reluctantly, that will do a lot of harm.
So unconscious bias, in the context of D&I, do you think it lives with you, or are you free of unconscious bias?
The person who says they're free of unconscious bias is therefore the leading contender for unconscious bias. I get that. It drives me wild, Kevin, trying to think about it and to think about how to deal with it. And, classics, like relying on interviews for selecting candidates for roles, really low probability of long-term outcomes. It's a really poor predictor of success, the classic old, but here's our top 3 candidates. We're going to interview them all and then we're going to pick one. You're like, well, there's going to be some unconscious biases there for sure. So that's, I think about that. I think about it all the time, and yet I'm not necessarily the best to ask, because equally I'm not sure I've come up with the best plans to deal with it. I think there's some really cool tech out there that allows you to deal with it. We're dealing with some nice little startups around, particularly the hiring process. But then again, it's well proven that algorithms, the AI, etc., and the algorithms can equally just send you down, another pathway, and before you even know it, you've ended up somewhere else with similar issues. So I think it's prevalent and possibly will always remain so. Just being awake to it and aware of it, I think is a good start, that's for sure.
In terms of divergent thinking, in terms of diversity and inclusion, does that bring a fresh way of looking at problem solving to the table within your business?
Yeah, it does. You've got to curate it, and you've got to be, again, I think about this a bit, that it's one thing to build a diverse team. It's another thing to hear from your diverse team. So you can still have, you know, around the table or the virtual table as we all are at the moment. You know, voices that, you know, you like to hear from, etc. But it's incumbent upon everyone to make sure you hear from all the voices, not just the ones that, you know, are confident enough to speak up. So yeah, that's where my head's at the moment as well, is how do I make sure and check in on myself and check in with others that, you know, hey, we haven't heard from you, you know, and getting contribution, not just presence, you know, in the way we're going about things. That's front of mind for me. We want an environment where people are comfortable, have got, you know, that I think the technical term is the psychological safety, that they can speak up, say what they think, challenge ideas, you know, and geez, you get great outcomes in, like safety, for example. You know, it goes back many years that we've talked about. But if people feel safe speaking up, then they can also point out things that are unsafe. You know, that makes a huge difference to an organisation. So yeah, absolutely creating that environment where people can be that, you know, absolutely comfortable in what they're doing and how they're presenting and how they're showing up. You know, it takes some discipline to a certain extent as well, because, you know, if you just show up, you know, totally you, then you've got to be mindful of everyone else too. And as I say, that takes a bit of discipline. But that's, I fundamentally think that is the way we want to be. And as an organisation, that will progress us to being an even better organisation. Diversity and inclusion is important because if you think about the communities in which we're operating, we are often operating, you know, the social infrastructure business that I have is working with some of the most challenged people socially, socioeconomic, some backgrounds that are traumatic, in and out of correctional facilities, social housing, mental health, etc. A diverse and inclusive organisation just immediately creates empathy for the people in which we're supporting and serving. So for mine, again, it just goes so far in helping us understand and support those people, because, you know, they're deserving of our support, obviously, whether it's our social housing business or our health business or our justice business or whatever it is it just makes those connections so much better.
Derek, thank you very much for your time. I know how busy you are, and you've been so kind and generous, and thanks for sharing some of your insights with us. I really appreciate it.
Kevin, I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, mate.